There is something wrong. Shouldn't you already know? Should've spelled it out. Let me put it in a song. Every time you make that face, like crawling toward damaged space. Out of sync and out of tune. A frequency I can't undo. Please listen close.
Hello, and welcome to FFS. I'm your host, Paulina. Tonight, let's talk about the Supreme Court, or as I'd like to call them, the chucklefucks that decided states should have more to say over my body than me, or that businesses are people. Seriously, fuck them. Oh yeah, this is gonna be a fun one. I'm already pissed off and we're less than a minute in. Okay, let's get started. The Supreme Court was created under Article 3, Section 1 of the U.S. Constitution, only laying out that the judges' terms are for life. Then, what types of laws the court system as a whole is responsible for. There is remarkably little on how the justices get chosen or what exactly the scope of their power is. Article 3 is literally only 6 paragraphs long, 2 of which talk about the crime of treason, not the judiciary at all. There are only 2 sentences that actually mention the Supreme Court in all of the Constitution. That left a lot to be settled after the fact. There is no mention about how many justices should sit on the court, no mention of how many justices should be assigned, no specifics on what exactly their job is, just that there should be a Supreme Court, and justices should be appointed for life. That's it. Most of how the Supreme Court works is governed by standard federal law or a tradition. There is no law that says the word of the Supreme Court is final. It's just tradition. The size of the court has fluctuated over the years. Washington had 6 justices on the court. During President Johnson's tenure, the Supreme Court had 10 justices before settling back to the 9 we have today. This is a long-winded explanation just to say that the Supreme Court has a ton of power and very little oversight on what to do with that power. How could that possibly go wrong?
And so some of these people seem to have created a way of letting Thomas kind of have his cake and eat it too. Thomas stays put on the court in his supremely important, though, public sector job, and his wealthy right-wing supporters pay for him to live like a rich guy.
Fuck. Okay, I guess we have to talk about this fucker right here. As you heard in the video, this guy is Clarence Thomas, an associate judge of the Supreme Court. This corrupt son of a bitch was appointed by President Bush, not W. Bush, his father, George H.W. Bush, in 1991. That is so long ago that if Back to the Future was made today, he would have been on that bench for 3 years in the year they went back to. He has been on the bench for 33 years. 33 years. His tenure on the Supreme Court started off with a bang.
My working relationship became even more strained when Judge Thomas began to use work situations to discuss sex. On these occasions, he would call me into his office for reports on education issues and projects, or he might suggest that because of the time pressures of his schedule, we go to lunch to a government cafeteria. After a brief discussion of work, he would turn the conversation to a discussion of sexual matters. His conversations were very vivid. He spoke about acts that he had seen in pornographic films involving such matters as women having sex with animals and films showing group sex or rape scenes.
Yeah. After the close of Judge Thomas's confirmation hearing, tapes of an interview that Anita Hill had with the FBI leaked and were made public, and the Senate immediately reopened the confirmation hearings to interview Hill about how Thomas had sexually harassed her. She sat there while the all-male committee grilled her for hours. Were they thoughtful or sensitive in their questions? Fuck no. They asked her bullshit like this.
You testified this morning that the most embarrassing question involved, this is not too bad, women's large breasts. That's a word we use all the time. You testified, you drew an inference that Judge Thomas might want you to look at pornographic films, but you told the FBI specifically that he never asked you to watch the film. Is that correct? The fact is, flatly, he never asked you to look at pornographic movies with him. Quote, this is not too bad, I can read it. Thomas liked to discuss specific sex acts and frequency of sex, close quote. You said you took it to mean Judge Thomas wanted to have sex with you, but in fact, he never did ask you to have sex, correct?
No, he did not ask me to have sex. He did continually pressure me to go out with him, continually, and he would not accept my explanation as one as being valid.
So that when you said you took it to mean we ought to have sex, that was an inference, a mere allegation.
Senator, I would suggest to you that for me, these are more than mere allegations. These are the truth to me. These comments are the truth to me.
I'm not questioning your statement when I use the word allegation. I know about sexual harassment and discrimination against women, and I think I have some sensitivity on it. How reliable is your testimony in October of 1991 on events that occurred 8-10 years ago? How sure can you expect this committee to be on the accuracy of your statements?
I guess one really does have to understand something about the nature of sexual harassment.
It's reported that there were 2 more women willing to testify, but the Democratic chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee had made a deal with the Republicans to not interview them. Who was the chair of the committee, you might ask? Looks familiar, right? Just picture him looking like 100 years older. Yeah, that's the current president of the United States, Joe Biden. Because he let the hearings devolve into that garbage and had a hand in covering up other witnesses, Clarence Thomas was able to ascend to the Supreme Court, where he has been handing down shitty opinion after shitty opinion. But more than that, he is corrupt to his core. He once said about being a Supreme Court justice, the job is not worth doing for what they pay. The job is not worth doing for the grief, but it is worth doing for the principle. Unfortunately, his principles have failed us all, because this fucker has taken vacation after vacation on billionaire Harlan Crow's dime, and Crow even bought Thomas's mother's house and lets her live there rent-free. Another conservative billionaire pays his wife, Ginny Thomas, tens of thousands of dollars for consulting work. What is Thomas's excuse for all of this? Oh, we have the same values. I would vote that way no matter what. Sure you would. But wait, there's more. On January 6, Ginny Thomas was texting with Mark Meadows, aide to convicted felon Trumpelstiltskin.
Newly revealed text messages showing the pressure the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas put on the White House to overturn the 2020 election. The text messages from Ginny Thomas obtained by the January 6th Select Committee. Stop us, Hill! As it investigates the riot that broke out on Capitol Hill. The committee getting its hands on at least 24 texts sent between Ginny Thomas and President Trump's then Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, in the days after the election. In one, Thomas writing, quote, "Help this great president stand firm, Mark. Biden and the left is attempting the greatest heist of our history." And in another, just days after the 2020 election, Thomas writing, "Do not concede." Other messages show Thomas pushing false conspiracy theories, urging Meadows to tell officials in the West Wing to buck up.
Yeah, those texts present a clear conflict for Clarence Thomas in the multiple Trump cases that have been seen since January 6th, or are about to be seen. So did he recuse himself? Fuck no. There's no oversight of the Supreme Court, so why would he? Paulina, that's just one shitty judge. There are 8 others. There can't be more like him, can there?
Dr. Ford, with what degree of certainty do you believe Brett Kavanaugh assaulted you?
100%.
Well, fuck. Please tell me that's all, please. Seriously, I'm begging you.
Just days after the nation saw an image of an upside-down flag outside of the home of Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito in the days after January 6, a symbol of the Stop the Steal movement, a new photo tonight raising yet more questions. The New York Times publishing images of a pine tree flag outside of Alito's New Jersey beach home last summer with the words, "Appeal to Heaven." Like the upside-down flag, the pine tree flag was carried by some pro-Trump supporters on January 6 as the Capitol was attacked.
Seriously? You've got to be fucking kidding me! With all this bullshit going on with the Supreme Court these days, it's no wonder that Americans' trust in the court has hit an all-time low. With less than half Americans looking at the court less favorably, it's hard not to sympathize with them. This court is corrupt and above scrutiny, and inherently anti-democratic, and there is seemingly no way to rein it in. Or is there? Remember at the beginning of this episode where we went to great lengths to explain how the Constitution has very little to say on the court? That's about to pay off here. See, sometimes we think these things through. Almost every power the court has was granted by ordinary federal law. Law only requires a simple majority to pass. Congress can strip the Supreme Court of most of its powers, they could expand the court to dilute the power of corrupt justices, and they can leave the court as a shell of its former self. The problem is that both sides are too busy playing to their bases and fomenting faux outrage to bother to actually do their fucking jobs and enforce the checks and balances our founding fathers intended for there to be. And with that, I'm Paulina Galindo. Make sure to tune in next week when we talk about vanity sizing and women's clothing. Thank you and good night.